Welcome, Reanna.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We've already talked for like 10 minutes before I started recording. So this is like the recording welcome for YouTube. But Miss Reanna is a 4/6 Splenic projector. And we're going to do a little projector success series where she's going to talk to you about what it's like to be a projector, what it's like to experiment with her design, and what that process looks like. Are you ready, Ree?
I'm so ready.
Amazing. Okay, so as projectors, we are here to master a system. And so I would just love to get like your perspective, like whatever comes off the spleen, the heart, the throat of like, what system or systems do you feel like you are mastering in this lifetime?
What system or systems am I mastering?
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Okay. From like the projector perspective, I think the first thing that comes to mind and body really is like the system of sitting back and observing. So like I'm mastering the art, as in like mastering, still practicing, mastering the art of sitting back and waiting for like genuinely my invitation to speak, where it's like, if I see the system itself and I'm overviewing it, I'm seeing like all these manifesting MGs, like all these energy sources go. And then it's like, for me, it's like a feeling where I'll know when to step in, or sometimes it's like an actual invitation. So I guess in that sense, like the system itself that I'm learning to master is the sitting back. And then it's also when I do step in, actually fully stepping in for my design. It's a little bit of a twofold of a mastery system.
Yeah, it's almost like that way of being. And then two, like there is a body of work that you have been studying, experimenting with, talking about. Like, can you tell us about that system?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So I call them like my breadcrumbs. Excuse me. Something wants to come out.
Yeah, it does.
My breadcrumbs have been for years now, consciousness, emotions, as in like energy in motion, and the body. So really like the system in that sense that I'm practicing mastering, I guess, is really, for one, as the individual, tapping into my own body, really getting out of my mind, and letting the body be the driver, as like I let the mind be the passenger. And then being that, so that I can invite others to practice that as well. So the system then would be like helping the collective get back into their bodies as well, whether it's for healing disease or again, like dis-ease in the body when we're not processing emotions. It could be just in regards to consciousness and shadow work and stuff. Really any kind of mind body healing, mental health, physical, all of it.
Oh my gosh, so good. Because it's so, like, just for like the human design nerds out there, like Rihanna's incarnation cross is the right angle cross of the Maya, which is all about consciousness. And you also have like two islands of definition within your chart, which is the root that's connected to the spleen or the splenic function. So that is all about that body, right? Like splenic body, like what's healthy, what's not. And then the other island of energy that you have in your chart is the ajna to the throat, which is like through that channel of acceptance, like what do I think? Like I want to share my opinions and perspectives. So it's like not only this beautiful like embodied experience, but it's also like what do I have to say? So I think that that's like so fun that those two pieces like really show up in what you're studying and what you're interested in.
That's so interesting you bring that up too, because I remember when we first started talking through coaching stuff, I was trying to fix thinking or saying I think to I feel, to try to like make myself only have like what I feel about it to be in the body. But because of the ajna, there's allowance for me to say some things that I feel and some things that I think, and like it's okay to have that balance. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh, like, and that's like so cool too, right? It's like you are perfectly designed. And it's like there's nothing broken with you and there's nothing wrong. Like you don't go into like following your design to like fix yourself. You go into it to like come back home to self, which I think is like a really powerful perspective, because like in the self-improvement world, it's just like, oh, something's wrong with me, I need to get better. It's like, no.
Yeah, that's what's so prime, I think, about human design too, that you've opened my eyes to so beautifully, is like the society at large says like, this is the way to do it to be successful, or whatever it is that you're achieving. And human design is like, wait, come, like you just said, come back home and see what keys you have inside to unlock the doors you're looking to.
Yes. And no one else has your effing codes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So annoying to me when you're like, I have the codes for, I'm like, no,
Good
I have the codes. We all have our own codes.
stuff.
Okay, so I would love to know, just like being a splenic authority, what does your authority feel like in your body? Like when you know the correct answer, when you don't know the correct answer, like what shows up for you? How does your authority kind of speak to you?
So for me, I usually like, I'm going to say feel a yes. And it's not usually like it's not always like a wild yes. Usually for me, it's in my gut, and it's just like a push moving forward.
Mm.
Which to me, like I've made some like commitments with my body. Usually like I'll do a practice, even if I'm just sitting, like to almost let my body be a pendulum. That we've made an agreement that like usually things moving forward is more like a yes. So for me, that splenic yes again is in my gut. I don't always like hear a no necessarily, but for me, kind of in that same token, it would be like there's not as much push forward energy. And it sometimes is like a this is the moment, like very much so. And sometimes it's just like a very subtle, like, hey, listen, I'm saying yes right now, or hold on, it's like, just wait, let's make a decision when it comes. And that would probably be one of my biggest practices that I've learned over the past couple of months, really, is knowing that it's going to come when it comes.
Mm.
Because I think like my mind will be like, I need to make the decision. What am I going to do? Da, 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 da. And if I just keep like going towards things that bring me joy and living my life, all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, now's the time to go do that.
Yeah.
So.
Oof. I know. I hear from a lot of people that like splenic authority is the hardest one to follow. Like, how would you know? Because you have it and you don't have the other one. So you're like, yeah, it's the hardest because it's mine. But within that perspective, it's like, how have you been able to kind of like manage your mind around that? I feel like you could touch on it a little bit, but if you could expand on like how you manage your mind around like, when is it time to make decisions versus like, oh, these are just thoughts.
I think it's like a conversation of being aware of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know when we first started talking a lot, I would like tell you all these things about what I'm thinking, and it would just be like, bah, 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 bah. And like it would just be a simple question you would ask of kind of like, well, is that the mind or is that the body? And it just made me start learning about my own design system and like what's happening, that I guess you're asking like how to manage the mind, right? It would just be like, for me, being the observer of the thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's like thoughts that run rampant that maybe is more like ego oriented or just like the normal society stuff. And then I'm starting to learn more and more when it's like a thought coming from the body, where it's like an emotion that's being produced that says, this is what needs to happen.
Yeah. And how have you been able to like drop from the mind into the body? Is there something that you is kind of like a trigger for you that's like, oh, drop into the body, or this is how I actually do that? Because I hear that from a lot of people are like, wait, but I'm splenic, but like, what does that feel like? How do I drop into the body? What would you say to someone who had that question?
Two things where I'm at right now, at least, that brings me awareness is the speed of my thoughts, like how fast they're coming out, and how, honestly, for me, how aggressive they are. If it's something like mean or just like a very critical voice, or something that's just, again, very aggressive. I don't currently think that intuition talks to you in a mean voice. I think that usually if it's coming off like very rampant, it's probably mind anxiety, and sometimes that's okay. Like, but my answer then for someone right now would just be to practice being aware of when it's thoughts that you feel calm in your body, and when it's thoughts that feel a little bit more go, go, go.
I love how you like, even like just listening to your design, right? Like I think right now. So like, oh, it's so beautiful with your like channel of acceptance, right? It's like, I have the facts until I have new facts. And then like, you're willing to take on the new facts and like change your perspective. Like, oh, it's so good. Okay. So I'm curious for you, like since starting to experiment with your design as a projector, what have you been able to really let go of? Like a way of operating that you used to be really living into and that you've gotten to kind of release.
We could be here for a long time. Like, even like I watch my body fall back, like I'm like getting comfortable. Like I came into this like rigid and like everything had to be a certain way. And that like goes in so many aspects of my life. Again, whether it was business or I know I talked to you, like I went through some eating disorder struggles, like everything was so just
Mm-hmm.
that I think one of the biggest things I've let go of is the shoulds.
Mm.
Like just the overall should, again, whether it's business or a lifestyle, is like a very just new way of being that allows me to, this sounds so like silly, but to just be, like genuinely just be. I don't know if that even answered your question. I got so excited to let it go. Like I was just
Like that song, I release control and surrender to the flow. I'm so sorry for singing on here, but that's
no, great.
that's the vibe.
I wish I knew the song. I would have sang with you.
Oh my gosh, I'll send it to you. I know you're a music queen, so I love it. I love it. Okay, so that's like the really like being able to let go of vibes. And I'm curious with that, right? With letting go of this like need to, you didn't say the word control, but the essence and the energy that I'm getting at is like very like control oriented. Like I'm curious when letting that go, a lot of people have a hard time of like really grasping what it means to wait for the invitation.
So do I. But I mean, like that's part of it too, is like that's like the bitterness, if you will, right? Is like
Mm-hmm.
I think the more that I started feeling the annoyance I would get when I would speak and no one would hear me, or when I would offer advice and no one would hear me, it just kind of honestly got to one of those points where I was like, enough is enough. Like I'm done trying to be seen where I'm not being, like I'm just over it. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And a big shift that I think is helping me, I'll say I'm still practicing, is fully seeing myself first.
Warm fuzzies.
Yeah. And that is helping me sit back when maybe I am seeing someone struggle or I'm overseeing the process. And to me, it's like, no shit, guys, like you're doing X, Y, and Z. And of course I say that like with humble, like I'm no know it all, just, and the more that I sit back and just like self-talk and be like, oh, like this would be maybe another good idea they could do. Or like, I just, again, like just self-talk of seeing myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually just like this patient game of just like, they'll come to me if they want to come to me. And kind of goes like I can sit with myself, and even if other people aren't projectors, like I can put myself in those other shoes too, where I need advice sometimes and I don't really go to someone else until like I'm really ready for it. So I'm like, okay, well, as a projector, then I can know too, like if my energy is that strong pointing out, like I would probably feel intimidated if roles were reversed. So I will just sit back. And then the last point on it would be like just the practice of being as much as I can in my soul and not my ego, because I can tell when I like so badly just want to tell someone something. And if I like, for me, I take a soul perspective where I'm like, when their soul is ready to hear it, like that's really what we're here for, again, in my perspective. So I'm just trying to turn into my heart and just be like, I'm almost talking with them like soul to soul, like I'm here for you when you're ready.
And do you have any like fun examples of invitations that you've received?
There's been like business type invitations where I'll be just like doing my thing, posting. I think I've told you about this one, but it would just be like a fun, like random message I'll get from someone I knew from years ago to be, hey, like, we would really love for you to come speak to this group or to be an advocate for this. Or another cool one was it was something that someone had saw that I posted like months and months and months ago and was like, hey, like, I actually love your perspective on this. Like, what else do you think about that? You know,
Mhm.
that that's kind of like the soul perspective too, is like, it'll come when it's ready, you know, like, so just little stuff like that. And then the last would be in just probably like everyday relationship stuff. Um, just like seeing something so clearly and then finally someone being like, Ree, what do you think I should do about this, this, and this? And I'm like, ha, well, funny you asked.
I love it. And like with those invitations, just as like reflecting back to you, like what you were saying was there's self-recognition there. And then there's also like you being the lighthouse and shining your light, because you were mentioning like, oh, previously I had posted this or had talked about this. And then it doesn't happen necessarily right away, right? It's not like you post and then someone's like immediately in your DMs, although that can absolutely happen. But it's like that seed has been planted in people's minds, like, oh, Reanna talks about this. Rihanna's interested in this. This is her perspective. This is the way that she thinks. And so in the future, when I'm dealing with something like this, I'm going to go back and ask her because I know she's a resource that would actually be able to lead and guide me. So it's just like a really beautiful, like, seeds planting creation that you've established, not only online. And I know that you're more like feeling the desire to be in person and like go deep with people, so like it's also in personal relationships, it's in community, it's in all of these different areas.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, especially like in the online community. I was one where I was like, oh, if I don't get 100 likes in the first day or two, like, I'm deleting this. And now I'm like, I don't care. It's like,
Detachment, like it, yeah. One, we're not for everybody. Two, it's not immediate. Like three, it's just shining your light. It's like that lighthouse analogy, right? Where we are lighthouses and we shine our light brightly, and the boats that are meant for us come to our shores, and the boats that aren't just keep passing by. But like, if our light's not on, people can't see us. Like,
yeah,
we got to be sharing and showing up in whatever way that feels good for you. But I loved you sharing all of those different examples. So I'm really curious, like, what does projector success feel like for you? So projector success is our signature, and it's not necessarily this external success of like, I have dollar bills and I'm like Bill Gates or whatever you want to talk about there. But it's a feeling in the body. So I'm really curious for you, like, what does success feel like for you?
I'm gonna sound like a 14-year-old skater boy, but mine is stoke. I'm stoked. Like, I'm just stoked. It's just a stoke. But also it's like a mix of like this stoke, but a very like calm stoke. Like, it's not an anxious stoke in any way. It's just like, yeah, I'm chilling, but I'm stoked. Like, I'm stoked. I
I love that. Where is it in your body? Like, that's
it's
the word. It's beautifully encompassed, but where is it?
probably like definitely in my stomach and my chest. Like, even right now, just like getting that vibe, I'm like, in my heart's like, ooh.
Yeah. And we get to feel that feeling whenever the F we want. We don't have to have like external circumstances like create that for us. It's like, even saying it right now, you just said like, I feel it. It's like, that's so beautiful. Like, what would it look like to actually like move from that place of already having the success, of already being stoked?
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus having to have like external reality create that for us. Like, no, we get to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And that's clearly how it actually works, is finding it within first.
Tell me more. I feel like you've been thoughts on this.
No, that's just inner experiences are outer reality.
Mm,
And first.
mm.
All right.
I want to know, like, what do you, so, being a projector, it's not about like all the things we do, even though that's what society has kind of like told us, like, the more you do, the more valuable you are, right? Like, that's this like generator mentality and like way of being and paradigm that we've really been operating in.
Yeah.
With 70% of the population being generators and manifesting generators, but like, here, projector paradigm, right? Like, what's our paradigm? Like, I'm curious, rather than what do you do, like, what do you see differently than most people?
Kind of feeling like an outsider because I feel like it's everything.
I freaking love it. Yeah.
um I
Let's talk
see.
about like, if you need like a little like a deeper prompt, like, I'm curious about like around consciousness. Like, what is everyone saying that you're like,
Oh, goodness. All right. Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
Well, just from like, if I look at society at large, I see, like you even bring up like the doing to the beingness. I'm like, let's look at the why, right? Like, is there an actual, could it be that we really all came here to work our butts off the way that we are? And could it actually be that we're made to stress in these bodies, that it's causing so much disease and ailment? And like, could it really be that, like, yes, we came here maybe for both the suffering and the pain, but is it something that we have to hold on to? And so when I look at like society at large, I I question just perspective in like our day-to-day living and how we're choosing to see the world and how we're choosing to have just our everyday experience. Um, that's one thing, like I really strive just in regards to consciousness of like, well, our consciousness is just, especially as a collective, there's just thoughts. Like if you think about it, when you're born, right, into your first time opening your eyes, you don't have you don't have any conscious thoughts. You're pure love. That's
Mhm.
all. You're just an essence of love and energy put together. That's really it. That everything that's our thoughts all day long are just conscious programming or subconscious programming, really. So I just get curious around our perspectives and the collective perspective, and how we can just as one individual start to shift that for a better life for self, but then just for other and collectively.
I don't think I've ever heard you talk about it like that.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And you answered it beautifully through your design and like the lens at which you look through the world, combining all your definition together. It's like,
You're gonna make me cry.
chef's kiss. I love it. I'm curious on that. If like someone were watching this and they're like, oh my gosh, yes. And like, where do I even start with that, Rihanna? Like, what do I do with that information? What would you recommend or suggest?
I mean, I feel like I'm already like in my head, I'm like working with them in a sense of like, well, where do you feel that? And like, what is that saying to you? And kind of going from there, and like, what would feel different, and just kind of guiding within more and closer to their personal truth. Like what is really true for you, and how can we embody that?
Below this, there's ways to get in contact with Rihanna. We'll ask her at the end too, just like summarize the whole thing of like where you can find her. But like, yeah, exactly. It's like a personal exploration journey. I freaking love it. Um, so then I'm curious, like throughout this like experimentation with being a projector over the past couple of months, like what are you most proud of? I'm asking you to recognize yourself.
I think I know. Just kidding. Oh, what am I most proud of? I think the first thing that's really coming forward for me is like allowing the fullness of who I am to feel. And I think that's why like I can speak to that whole like collective conscious and thoughts and everything, because I grew up in a very like toxic positivity mindset
Hmm.
where I would just stuff a lot of things, or just I put on like those rose colored glasses, and like that's okay sometimes. But I'm really proud of myself for allowing like the fullness of who I am to come forward in all of my sensitivities and how I really feel. And in that, allowing myself to love myself, even though I've made mistakes. I like came in a way that was very like perfectionist mindset, and I'm human and I've made mistakes, and I dealt with a lot of guilt and shame. And again, I kind of go back to my soul in this regard, and I'm just like so proud of myself for allowing myself to still try again the next day. Like we're just humans. It's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And connect. I've been really embracing some 4-6 in me. That I'm like really, really proud and stoked to be connecting the way I have been lately.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's like the rather than forcing yourself to do it the way that everyone else does it and like, let's go viral or whatever. It's like,
Right.
you're not designed for that. You're designed for like deep connections.
Yes.
And that's natural for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
I love that. Oh, so good. So good. So I just want to like close this out for anyone who's kind of like, maybe they just found out they're a projector.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, there's quite the difference in human design between like knowing you're a projector and like living it, embodying it, experimenting with being a projector. So I'm curious if you had one piece of advice for someone who literally just pulled the chart and they're like, oh my God, I'm a projector.
Woo. My like little girl answer is like, have fun, just have fun with it, because it
Yeah.
really is like just an experiment.
Love that.
Allow yourself the experience to just like really feel what the invitation is like for you.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of fight of like, at least for me, there was a lot of fight with like this dang invitation and what that really means. Just play. I think, that would be it. Just play with it. That's like the most simple thing I could say. Just play with the experiment. Just play with it.
I love it. It gets to be fun. It doesn't have to be so serious.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Miss Reanna, where can the humans find you?
You can find me on Instagram at recreating. It's RECREATINGGG. And that is also where you can find me on TikTok, or RiannaKarp.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And this fourth line probably has some community events for you to go to. So
For sure.
if she's your vibe, hit her up. Thank you so much, Reanna, for joining me today for this Projector Success series.
Actually changing my life in every way possible. I would literally not be able to do anything like without your guidance and assistance. You've absolutely inside and out changed my life, like fully in every way. So thank you.